Welcome to the CRE with CBC Worldwide podcast, Women of Coldwell Banker Commercial Edition, where we highlight real stories, smart strategies, and current trends from women leading the way in commercial real estate. I'm your host, Jenna Hille, and whether you're growing your career, leading a team, or interested in current industry trends, I'm really glad you're here. I'm honored to be joined today by Helen Calvin, CEO of Buildout, and one of the most compelling voices at the intersection of technology and commercial real estate. Buildout is the AI brokerage automation solution, automating everything from first contact to commission so brokers could stay focused on what they do best, relationships and winning business. Helen came up through revenue and growth leadership before stepping into the CEO role in 2024, and she's been moving fast ever since, launching new product lines, expanding Buildout's platform, and consistently challenging the industry to rethink how deals actually get done. Buildout is also one of our favorite CBC partners. Helen, thank you for the time today.
I am so excited to be here. Can't wait for this conversation.
I am so excited because I've heard you speak so many times before and on other podcasts, and I'm really excited to dive in more about your personal journey. Tell us about your path into commercial real estate. How did you find your way here?
Through bumbling around through millions of walls. I didn't actually start my career in either technology or commercial real estate. Most of my education was in behavioral science and buyer psychology. Why people do the inane, crazy things they do, not in their self-interest, despite their best intent. And thought I was going to be a behavioral researcher and found my way into leadership, technology, and then commercial real estate through recognizing that knowing what actually at the core motivates people actually helps you build a really strong business. And it's been fun to also see that intersection with how commercial real estate transactions are done and that navigation of building relationships. It's so much more central than just the spreadsheets that I think people give it credit for.
Absolutely. And I love that background in behavioral sciences because there's that psychology. We always talk about real estate being or commercial real estate rather too, a relationship business. And with AI, it's actually getting more relationship forward than less, I would say. Would you agree?
Oh, completely. And I think you're going to start to see that delta and separation between the brokers who really have that EQ, that emotional quotient, and also that ability to understand what really drives people and what their hopes and dreams are, versus those who just have been putting in the muscle and the numbers to create the output. I think you're going to see a growing divide between the sophistication of a broker.
So your journey is not linear and unlike many others in the industry. What does your work look like today? What are you focused on? What do you get excited about in your daily work?
I love certainly what we're doing now at Buildout. What gets me excited just with the capabilities of AI and automation does so much for our, the value proposition we offer on the platform. But for me personally, so much of my day is really setting the North Star for what matters most, creating that focus, and then getting boulders out of people's way, empowering the team underneath me to say, this is where we have to go. How do you think we should get there? And then just moving everything I can so that they have the runway they need and they can really push to that finish. And it's really satisfying to be surrounded by such people who are phenomenally smarter than I am, doing amazing work. And all I have to do is just make sure that nothing's blocking them. And it's really satisfying.
And that switch, and it's really reassuring to hear that as a leader, that your goal is to make sure people can do what they do best. What kind of shifted in how you lead, think, and make decisions once you transitioned from, CRO, which is very different, to CEO at Buildout?
Okay. I'm telling you, CEO, don't tell my head of sales this. CEO is 10 times better than CRO. It's the same pressure. It's the same accountability, but you actually get to make some decisions. I don't actually think it was so much of a change. It's just more discipline around the most important thing, which is focus. It's not what you say yes to, it's what you say no to, and it's what you say no to over and over and over again. It doesn't go away. The fire is still over here burning, and it hurts and it's painful, and it can keep trying to draw your attention. And the most important thing you can do is very clearly delineate, these are our must not fails. These are the areas where we're going to spend our time, because these are not just what's important, but what's critical. And keeping your fortitude in that focus is really where I spend a lot of my time, and it has been a big growth opportunity and something I've taken to heart.
And that's a big thing I think a lot of people struggle with too, especially women, is wanting to fill those holes. And it's not that you're not dedicated, it's that you're dedicating your place in the wrong areas, because that's not going to get you to your goal. And, what do you wish you saw more women in CRE, whether they're in brokerage, tech, or operations, knew about advocating for themselves or making kind of those hard decisions to make focus on one thing as opposed to helping out where they don't necessarily aren't needed?
I think one of the things women can do in any industry to better advocate for themselves is get very, very close to the data. One of the things that best thwarts bias, implicit or not, is hard, cold data and quantitative facts. And no one is going to pull it for you, and no one is going to tell that story for you. So how do you increase your acumen in the financials behind a business? I will shout out someone specifically. I worked with a fantastic CFO for several years, Caleb Matheny, who sat next to me for hours on end when I was earlier in my journey, and I would pour through the financials with him, spreadsheet by spreadsheet by spreadsheet. Why this? Why that? What is that number? How did you calculate this? What is this driving the business? If we move this lever, what does it move over there? And I got a real schooling in the economics of the industry that I was in, or the business that I was in. And I would encourage all women to put in that time to understand what the drivers are financially and economically of the business, because that then gives you the toolkit to prove your value, prove your worth, tell your story, talk about how you are changing the fundamental outcomes of the business. That gets really hard to deny, and that gets really hard to argue. It helps you with negotiating for everything from compensation to roles or placement or tools or ownership within your career when you just have the numbers.
That is great advice. I personally love data as well. Making data-informed decisions is something that I was taught early on in my career, and I have held on to, because to your point, it really helps provide that, that respect and expertise underneath what you're already building. If you could change one thing about how the industry is supporting women moving into these leadership roles, what would it be?
I might, Jenna, I might get you scolded on your podcast. Controversial take, hot take. I put a moratorium several years ago on women's only events, women's only panels, women's only segmented rooms. I would get invited to say, Helen, would you please keynote the Women in Tech event? And I said, how about you have a tech event and get a lot of women there? I sometimes think, yes, there's so much value in having that safe and protected space. But the number of times I've been at a conference and the women are in some room or some field down the hall, and the power is all at another room at the bar. And I wish that we had more cohesive events and we focused on getting women into the room than in getting women their own room.
I hear that argument so many times as well, because, why can't you just be an expert in tech? Why do you have to be a female expert in tech? Why can't, in separating that out, or calling that out more specifically, we inevitably kind of separate it out as opposed to integrating it naturally into our already existing system. So I hear you that, and I appreciate you pushing back on that, because it's a fair point, and it's true. We should be keeping that all together. And as I think about all this advice and expertise that you're giving to me on this podcast to date, and then all of your other talks, is there something that you wish someone had told you on earlier on in your career that might have helped you later on?
I have an amazing mentor in my life. Her name is Amanda Lannert, and she said to me, even just a few months ago, something that I kind of say, Amanda, why didn't you tell me that 15 years ago? She said, you don't have to be careless, but you have to care less. And it's this, not a lack of dedication or a lack of vision, but a disassociation from who I am as a person and the 10 people in my life whose opinion of me actually matters, and what I am trying to accomplish in a business or an industry that is going to mean that some people don't agree with my choices or my decisions, or some people just put onto me their own life struggles. And so how do you, it's not just thicker skin or grit, it's how do you say, I have my priorities in order, I know what matters, and it does not in any way diminish how hard I'm going to push, but it just relieves me of the burden of constantly worrying what people think about it.
That's just a brilliant way of, first off, I love that phrase, don't be careless, but you can care less, which is essentially you can control, and you have self-trust in what you're doing and executing. And I think another piece or another phrase that I always love is, you wouldn't ask someone for advice, why would you take their criticism, is another one that I hear in the industry a lot. Because if you want to go to that person for advice, why would you listen to what they're saying about your criticism? So I think that's just a fantastic piece of advice you shared there. In terms of your own professional growth, what's the best investment you've ever made?
Giving freely of my own time, my own modicum of experience. The number of people that I have invested in, either in their careers or early in their careers, or just anytime someone called and said, Helen, will you help me out? How much that has borne back to me. I didn't charge a fee, and I just said yes. And the value that has brought back to me is tenfold. And I now have a network of people that I can constantly call on, not just for favors, but for brainstorm partners or ideas or pressure tests for decisions I'm going to make. I have so many people who would go to bat for me. It's the most important thing you can do. And I think so often we think, if I'm going to give, what am I going to get? And I would just say, don't worry about the get. It will manifest itself. Just give.
Yes, if you keep showing up, things will, work out with you. That's a beautiful answer. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I would love to pivot a little bit now into some trends in commercial real estate, specifically in tech adoption. I know the talking point is we've historically lagged, but I think at this point we've been successful in a lot of ways, or at least kept up with whatever lag we might have had formerly. From where you sit, what's finally changed, and what's holding the industry back, if at all, at this point?
I mean, look, what holds any industry back from adopting anything, any change in behavior? And people often say technology, but really, it's not just technology. It's just a change in behavior that you're asking people to take on. But what I'm doing is working now, and it's that fallacy of sort of self-cannibalization. But if I take time from what I'm doing that's working now, I'm losing ground. And then I would be investing theoretically and risking to be doing better in the future. And of course, what happens is what you're currently doing works and works and works until it suddenly doesn't. And then now you're behind the eight ball. So that's always going to be the behavior change hurdle. I think what's interesting about what's changed more recently, or what's creating new opportunity for that, is I think we're starting to, as commercial real estate industry and as business as a whole, stop seeing technology as a zero-sum game of it's either going to work perfectly or it's going to fail. And we're starting to see it as incremental gains and a more of a willingness as we bring on technology partners to say, this is a long-term relationship, and this is a co-development process where I'm going to see some really great gains at the beginning that are central to whatever that vendor's, value proposition is. And then we're going to build together. It's one of the reasons I joined and then took over Buildout is, having over 15 years in the industry, gosh, we've built so much with such great partners, CBC being, a preeminent one of co-walking that walk together. And I think people are starting to understand more. Technology isn't just a one and done. It's an evolution that you can work with a really strong partner to get where you need to go.
That's a great answer. It is really, I think when people hear technology, they think of fast, to your point, they think of quick fix. How can you just solve this one problem? And when I spoke a couple of years ago in the Seminole at the CCIM conference, I believe, you were talking about how, yes, we're focusing now on automation and soon, and I think now, if not already, we've been going to use AI for strategy and in other capacities. And, commercial real estate, we've got long-term deals, it's a long-term process. I think to your point, that's the same with AI. It's not a quick fix right now. It's how can we fully integrate this into a new way of working so we can continually iterate and do better as a whole.
Right. And not just use, I want to solve this one thing. I think there's a lot of risk to look at smaller scale point solutions and say, this will solve this one piece of the puzzle for me. It'll make this one thing faster. I think people forget or neglect to understand there is a cost, fixed, monetary, otherwise, managing a relationship and a vendor. And that fixed cost is actually almost the same, irrespective of how many problems that vendor solves for you. So every time you say, well, I'll just solve this little problem or this little problem or this little problem, well, now you are exponentially increasing your just like technology partner management costs, as opposed to saying, where's the vendor where I can put in one bit of effort and get 10 things out of it or 100 things out of it. And certainly in all my history of technology, but even current, it's something we really strive for. I want the same amount of effort to yield a breadth of results, not just one problem solved.
And that's a great transition into my next question, which is, how do you think about what technology is actually worth adopting versus what's just noise or what's not going to be as comprehensive as you might have wanted?
Yeah, I think exactly that. It's be conscious of the investment you're putting in to owning and managing a relationship and learning and adopting a technology versus the best technologies are the ones where the same amount of input is going to get you breadth of output. The other thing about technology that I think is worth adopting, and this is if you're in the broker seat or you're in the sort of brokerage seat or the firm ownership seat, we don't only think about the problem we're dealing with. We don't often look in our periphery vision of, to our left and our right, the different functions within our organization and what they're dealing with as well, and how much Venn diagram of effort overlap is going. You are putting in the same data that the person to your right is putting in, that the person to your left is putting in. So the best technology partners really in industry, right, any industry right now, are saying half of the efficiency loss or the opportunity gain isn't just in this part of the organization's problem, but in the gaps or the overlap between. And where are our systems breaking between each other? You can get really good at the marketing function, but little do you know, finance is duplicating effort over here, your transaction coordinators are duplicating effort over there, your broker is duplicating effort. So how do you say it's not just in the issue itself, but it's between them?
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to your point at the top of the conversation, where looking at data and doing a comprehensive audit and view of your business and the outcomes and what your needs are.
Sometimes you just get 5 people in the room.
Yeah.
They haven't been talking to each other in the same room. You say, well, what do you do when I hand this over to you? And you find out they repeat 5 of the steps that you just repeated or that you just did. And you go, oh, we had a, this is very specific to Buildout. We had a fantastic customer who said it wasn't until we started putting in all the various end-to-end that the teams were talking to each other. And we didn't even realize how much overlap or how much breakage there was between. And I think that lack of communication when you're just kind of adopting one and another. So I think it's really thinking about the whole use case of that you're trying to solve for, not just one piece.
That's a great response. And what we love about Buildout in general is that you're focused on the idea that brokers should focus on relationships and the technology can kind of handle the rest, giving you more time to be relationship management focused. How do you see that balance playing out as AI gets more sophisticated? Does the broker's role change a little bit more, or do you think it just gets sharper?
Oh, I think I am such a firm believer. There are some industries where if we're going to, call a spade, I think there are some industries where technology is going to, I won't as far as say eliminate, but just diminish the need for that role. I am firmly in the camp that doesn't happen in commercial real estate, because at the end of the day, these decisions are, yes, financial, yes, quantitative, but they are incredibly trust and relationship driven and market expertise driven, which actually doesn't just come from a foundational data place. It comes from having lived and breathed that asset class or that asset type, and the pattern recognition that you can't yet get from AI. So I think you're going to see a real sophistication in the brokers who have the skills to build those relationships and bring that expertise. And it's only going to increase. I have a tracker where I'm saying, okay, revenue per broker. I think you're going to see an increase in transaction volume. And I think you're going to see an increase in what any individual broker can accomplish, because they've been spending 82% of their day just doing the administrative work to facilitate the 18% that is in the field building those relationships. As you switch the balance of that time, what is that going to free up in terms of the number of deals you can bring across the finish line?
Exactly. And I think that's part of, maybe what you think will always be true about what makes a great commercial real estate broker is that they use the tools that they have to be successful. They don't rely on them. They are add-ons to what they already know. You still need that foundational knowledge and that expertise in your market, in your community, to be able to excel. The tools are just kind of helping you get that information in a faster, more efficient way.
I think the other thing that's always going to be fundamentally true, Jenna, is I've actually worked in a variety of industries. I have never seen such an archetype of entrepreneurial spirit as in commercial real estate. There is a self-actualization dynamic to a broker. My mother used to have this fantastic phrase that just always stuck with me, which was, if you're not betting on you, the vote's unanimous. And I feel like this entrepreneurial bent and self-confidence, even if it's mired in a little bit of anxiety, right, that commercial real estate has. It is a catalog of people. It is a community of people who just believe by sheer will they can win. That's never going to change. And I think you empower that with technology and tooling that gets the noise off the plate. And I talk about getting boulders out of people's way. Get that boulder out of your way. Let's watch how fast these folks can run. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
I think you're completely right. And I'm so excited that you were here for this conversation. I could talk to you all day, but I do want to hit our lightning round questions before we wrap up here. So let's kick things off. Who's a woman in business or leadership you admire right now?
I'm going to cheat and give you two.
Great.
There's a woman named Annabella Spagna who runs project management and negotiation at Siemens Energy. And she is a fount of knowledge because she is at the forefront of a different sector of AI, which is not its capabilities, but how we're going to find and fund the energy to yield it. And really interesting perspective and conversations around the energy layer and how our energy and power grids fall into what the future is with AI. And she speaks a million languages and she's brilliant. The second is a woman named Lara Puente, who works in healthcare and has for many years, which I find to be, I worked in healthcare for a long time, a very complicated and very interesting industry. And she was at the forefront of marketing in that world, which is such an ethical intersection of driving business outcomes layered with making sure you're doing the best in the advocacy for patients and patient networks and the human component. And I think her mind state on how you balance ethics and business is one of the soundest in the market. And I find her writings and perspective on that to be brilliant.
Fantastic. Thank you for those answers. Our CBC quarterly values are do right, ownership mentality, big-hearted, and win together. Which one is resonating with you?
So hard to pick. Every year that I get older, I believe more in playing the long game. So I'm going to say do right.
Great. What is a most underrated leadership trait?
not just decision making, but knowing which decisions need to get made. By the time a problem has hit my desk, 99% of the company hasn't figured out how to solve it. I am no smarter. I do not have a magic wand to figure out how to solve it. So most of my time is spent thinking, is it worth being solved?
One thing you hope to see more of in commercial real estate in the next 5 years?
More types of investors. It's such an underrated asset class that has sort of been held at bay from the mass population. I think there's lots of ways for people in newer generations to get involved. I hope to see a diversification of those investing in this really, really great vehicle.
Absolutely. One tool or tech you can't live without at work?
You want to see how analog I am? I'm a big adopter of technology, but I have a pen that my brother gave to me that has my name written on it. And I write notes with it every day and think again of what matters. And I go nowhere without it.
Beautiful response. And finally, what's giving you hope or energy in the market right now?
You know what I kind of love? Although it's been tough that the last few years have been, we can't seem to see the full rebound that we want to see. It was survive until 25, and now it's, oh my gosh, tariffs and geopolitical noise, et cetera, et cetera. But I kind of love that longevity of this downturn or this rough period has made everyone go, you know what, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm done. I'm done waiting this out. I am going to figure out how to win in spite of. And you feel an energy of, I'm in control. I'm in the driver's seat. And I'm not waiting for the world to tell me that commercial real estate has a future. I'm going to make it have a future. And that kind of chutzpah just gets me going.
Yes, that is a very specific energy. You're not backing down, the problem solving. I see the montage in my head. I love that.
Gonna win anyway. We love the I'm gonna win.
Anyway. This has been fantastic, Helen. I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. Thank you so much for just your eloquence and your expertise and everything that you've been doing to help advocate for everyone in this industry. Where can people connect with you or learn more about your work?
LinkedIn is I'm very much on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to anyone, especially any one at the CBC side. It's such a great partner to us, and everyone I've met there, I have such massive respect for. So would love to meet anyone who I haven't met yet.
Fantastic. I really appreciate the time again, Helen. Thank you once more, and thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Women of CBC. We hope you found today's conversation inspiring and insightful. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your network and sign up for our newsletter. And if you're part of the CBC community, make sure you're nominating a woman champion who embodies our CBC core values. We'd love to share their story. Until next time, keep leading the way.